Hi guys, Geekonomics here. Welcome to the final edition in this sort of revision series for the AS and A2 macroeconomics papers. So what I want to do today is, you'll see from my channel I've put up a series of potential exam papers, and today I'm just going to run through what the likely answers would be for some, but not all of those questions. Having reviewed those questions, I think some are less likely than others, and so I'm just going to focus on the questions which I think are definitely the most likely questions to appear. So, the first question I'm going to take is question 1A. It's on a previous video. If you haven't already seen it, you can access it. So question 1A is to distinguish between short run and long run economic growth. So that's a 4-mark question. So there are a couple of ways that you could go about this. In terms of short run growth, we are talking about growth in the level of real output, and you can illustrate that in one of two ways if you wanted to include a diagram, and of course diagrams are a very effective way to gain answers, because when you draw the diagram and explain it, you're then providing some type of analysis. So short run growth, we could draw our PPF, or our production possibility frontier. You might know it as a PPC, a production possibility curve. Label it up as shown. So there's our PPF. You'll know that if you're on the line, anywhere on the line, means that you're using all of your resources to their maximum potential. And indeed, any point on this line shows your maximum potential output. So if we wanted to talk about short-run growth, short-run economic growth, we would be showing a movement towards that line. So for example, we may move from point A to point B. So we've had an increase in real output. We haven't had an increase in capacity, because if capacity increased, the PPF curve would shift outwards. We've simply had an increase in the level of real output. You could draw exactly the same thing and illustrate the same thing using an AS-AD diagram. Now remember your labels, ladies and gentlemen, on your diagrams, because they are of great importance. Price level, real output on macro diagrams. Now, in effect, any point on the line here shows your maximum potential output. Well, that is exactly the same as saying we're at maximum potential in terms of the KAS curve, which is at the full employment level of output. And so a similar illustration of short-run economic growth on this diagram would be to show, for example, if we've drawn an AD curve starting at point A, which we might say is equivalent to this point A, well, to get to point B we need to be on the line of maximum capacity, maximum potential output, and so a shift of AD1 to AD2, A to B, is showing us short-run economic growth, because we have an increase in the level of real output. Now of course we can go on and we can say that we've had an increase in the price level, etc., but for the purposes of this question it's really not necessary. So that's our short run economic growth. Long run, on the other hand, is showing and demonstrating an increase in the productive capacity. Now that means that the PPF curve will be shifting outwards. So we go from PPF 1 out to PPF 2. So in effect we're moving from point A to point B. We're moving from a point on the original PPF to a point on a new PPF. Now, why might we move to a point on new PPF? Well, we might have We might have become more productive, we might have new technology, we might have an influx of new labour into the economy, all sorts of reasons. And we could also illustrate the same thing again on a macro ASAD diagram, price level, real output again, level of output, and this time we would be showing, so there's our KAS curve. We're going to demonstrate an increase in long run economic growth, so that means our productive capacity has increased, as we see here, and that's simply the same as shifting the AS curve to the right, as shown. You could throw on an AD curve if you wished as well. And of course, that, ladies and gentlemen, as I'm sure you know, there's sort of a double whammy benefit there, because not only are you getting an increase in real output, but your price level is falling from P1 down to P2. But that's the sort of basic gist of things in order to illustrate the difference between short-run economic growth and long-run growth. Don't be afraid on the exam paper, if there's no room for a diagram, don't be afraid to use the additional pages at the back of your answer booklet, and just write right beneath the answer, just say, please examiner, please see page 14, and draw your diagrams there. You know, I would always encourage more diagrams rather than less, to be honest. Diagrams are a great way of, especially when it comes to the analysis and the comment questions, a great way of gaining those higher order marks. Okay, so that's 1A. 1B says, analyse the reasons why the UK's economic recovery might not be sustainable. So if you've read extract 1, you will know that it starts off with a couple of paragraphs which are very complimentary about the state of the UK economy. But then we have three commentators, Professor John Van Reenen, then Liam Halligan, and then David Blanchflower, who all comment on the fact that the situation in the UK economy in terms of its recovery perhaps is not quite as rosy as the picture which is initially painted. So let's consider, first of all, let's consider the question again. So the question is, analyse the reasons why the UK's economic recovery may not be sustainable. So let's consider the views of JVR, first of all, JVR being John Van Reenen. So John Van Reenen points out that long-term unemployment, the actual number for that, he quotes as 900,000. And indeed, I'm sorry to say, ladies and gentlemen, it tends to be people of your age group, the sort of 16 to 24-year-olds, who tend to fall into this particular category of being long-term unemployed. Now, what are the impacts of being long-term unemployed? Well, I would suggest to you that it has an impact not only on the aggregate supply side of things, but also on the aggregate demand side of things. Because if you are long-term unemployed, the longer you're unemployed, the more and more your skills become outdated. And in an environment and in an economy where technology is moving on so swiftly, if you don't keep your skills up to date, then it becomes very, very difficult to actually access the job market, because your skills, they just become redundant, they become outdated. Now, if the skills of 900,000 people become redundant and become outdated, then the productive potential of the economy is going to contract. And as a consequence, in terms of AS, now I'm going to, just for the purposes of saving time, I'm not going to label these up all the time, but in terms of your AS curve is going to be probably moving inwards, because these people, long-term unemployed, won't be able to contribute anything to the economy, and hence the productive capacity, the productive potential of the economy will actually fall from Y1 to Y2. That's the first point. What about the aggregate demand side of things? So we've got 900,000 people unemployed, long-term unemployed, in receipt of some type of benefit payment, probably job seekers allowance. They're obviously not earning as much as they would be if they were actually in gainful employment, and hence in terms of their aggregate demand, remember C plus I plus G plus X minus M, the actual consumption element of aggregate demand will be falling. Now, we're going to come back to this later, but of course the consumption element of AD in the UK economy, it's around about 60%. Very big driver of aggregate demand in the UK economy. Well, if AD is falling, then obviously the AD curve, we'll put these together in a moment, but the AD curve is shifting from AD1 to AD2. It's moving and shifting to the left. So bring those two things together. So we've got a KAS curve starting at KAS1. We've got an AD1. So we're saying that capacity, the productive potential of the economy is falling, and so KAS1 is moving to KAS2. It's moving inwards like so. Now I think at this stage is a very important term which we must introduce, which is known as hysteresis. And the theory of hysteresis talks about the fact that people's skills become outdated, they become redundant, and they are therefore no longer positively contributing to the output of the economy, and hence the AS curve shifts inwards and to the left, like so. So hysteresis, ladies and gentlemen, would be a great term to get into your actual answer. The second thing, of course, is, and the double whammy here, is that AD1 will be shifting left to AD2. So we're going from P1 Y1 to P2 Y2, like so. And as a consequence of this reduction in aggregate demand, caused by the reduction in consumption, caused by the fact that we've got these people long-term unemployed, it means that the growth prospects for the UK economy are obviously very significantly reduced. So there's a double whammy effect, Y1 moving to Y2 as a consequence of this reduction in both AD and AS. So those are the thoughts of John Van Reenen on that, and he also then makes reference to something else as well. So let's consider the second bullet point which John Van Reenen refers to, which is a very interesting statement, and he says that there is a rise in employment alongside a fall in the employment rate. A rise in employment alongside a fall in the employment rate. Now, I may just be about to get thrown out of this room, ladies and gentlemen, so I think I'm going to just pause that and I'll come back to you on this one in a moment, I think. Let me just check. Yeah, we're going to move rooms, so I'll carry this on elsewhere.